Hello, friends. When you hear the word cartel, you probably imagine masked men with guns, jungle camps, dramatic raids, and violent headlines. A cartel in the popular imagination is loud, the more you will trade with it. But the most dangerous cartel is often not the one you can clearly see on the news, it's the one you don't see. Because the most powerful criminal networks don't survive by being loud. The more you will trade with it, they survive by being invisible, by blending into normal life, using legal-looking businesses as cover, and quietly controlling systems. The more you will trade with it, today's story is about the kind of cartel that doesn't just sell illegal goods. It sells control. Control over supply chains, fear, local politics, and corruption. And once a cartel reaches that level, the more you will trade with it, it becomes more than a gang. It becomes a shadow institution. Before we go deeper, let's be clear, this is not about glorifying crime. There is nothing cool or cinematic about cartel power. You will trade with it. Their business model is built on exploitation of poor communities, addicted customers, forced labor, and broken governance. This is a documentary-style breakdown of the pattern sign. The more you will trade with it, with how invisible cartels work and why. Just arresting a few people often doesn't fix the problem. Here is the first idea you need to understand. Cartel, the cartel you've never seen, is not always one method. Most people think a cartel is one organization with one boss. In reality, modern cartels often function like ecosystems. The more you will trade with it, they have visible street-level operators who take the risk and get arrested. They have mid-level coordinators managing routes and money. The more you will trade with it, they have business fronts that look normal from the outside. Transport companies, farms, construction firms, import-export operations. They have financial channels, shell structures, fake paperwork, cash-heavy businesses. And they have protection, fixes, corrupt links, intimidation, and influence. The disturbing part is that many pieces look legal from the outside. A warehouse. The more you will trading company, a shipping container, a small factory, a normal bank transfer with the right paperwork, a legitimate shop. That's why it's hard to fight. It hides inside the economy. The more you will trade with it. Now here's the next idea. The real product is not drugs, it's power. Yes, illegal drugs are often the most famous revenue stream. The more you will trade with it, but the true strength of a cartel comes from diversification and control. When cartels grow, they usually expand into multiple illegal markets: extortion, kidnapping, human smuggling, trafficking, market trade, illegal mining, counterfeit goods, black market trade, land grabbing, and corruption for hire. This is why cartels become unavoidable for ordinary people. Even if you never touch drugs, the more you will trade with it, you might still feel cartel power through fear, insecurity, higher costs, and taxes that aren't paid to the state but to criminals. At that point, the cartel becomes a parallel authority. The more you will trade with it, it doesn't sit outside society. It becomes a competing institution inside of society. So how does such a cartel stay invisible? Through three shields. The first shield is fear. Fear is the cheapest form of control. You don't need a large army if witnesses are too scared to speak. Businesses comply quietly. Communities look away. Fear becomes social discipline. The more you will trade with, the second shield is money. Money buys logistics, recruitment, weapons, and the most important thing, corruption. A cartel does not need to defeat the state militarily. The more you will trade with it, it only needs to weaken enforcement enough to operate. The third shield is legitimacy, and this is the most disturbing. In places where the state is absent or ineffective, the more you will trade with it. Some cartels build local legitimacy by funding community events, paying medical bills, offering jobs, or presenting themselves as order. It's not generosity, it's strategy. The more we'll trade with it, because when people depend on you, they protect you. This is why invisibility isn't only about hiding, it's about embedding. Now let's ask the deeper question, why do these cartels keep reproducing? The more you will trade with it, because cartels don't grow only because criminals are evil, they grow because the environment rewards them. Three conditions produce cartel growth. First, high demand. Book it. The more you will trade with it, whenever there is a high demand black market with huge profit margins, supply will appear. Competition becomes violent because the rewards are massive. Second, weak institutions. If police are underpaid, you will trade with it. If courts are slow and governance is corrupt, criminal networks become efficient alternatives, not moral alternatives, but efficient ones. Third, poverty and recruitment. The boundary with it. Cartels recruit where opportunity is limited. When young people see no future in education or jobs, cartel money looks like a shortcut. This is how the system reproduces itself. Poverty creates recruits. The more you will trade with it. Corruption is protection. Profit creates expansion. Once that cycle begins, breaking it is extremely hard, and this is where many people misunderstand crackdowns. The more you will trade with it. Aggressive crackdowns can remove one leader, but the environment stays the same. Profit, demand, corruption. Another group fills the gap. Worse, crackdowns can fragment a cartel into smaller factions, and violence rises because now the market is contested by many players. The more you will trade isn't only, why can't the government win? The question is, what happens after the government wins one battle? Because if the system that produces cartels stays alive, the cartel regenerates under a new name. Finally, there's one invisible weapon that makes unseen cartels truly terrifying: control of information. People think cartel power is guns, but invisible cartel power is also silence, intimidation of journalists, threats to activists, strategic rumors, selective violence to create examples. When people don't know what is safe to say, the more you will trade with it, society becomes quiet, and in silence cartels grow. That quiet adjustment is the sign of invisible control: people avoiding roads, avoiding topics, avoiding reporting, avoiding conflict. The more you will trade with it. Discuss the main idea: the most dangerous cartel is often the one you don't see because it hides inside normal life and normal business. Now let's go deeper. The more you will trade with it. How does invisible cartel actually function? Not like a movie with one boss giving orders in a dark room, but like a modern organization designed to survive pressure. The more you will trade with it, and we'll keep this educational, we'll focus on patterns, not on operational or details. The first thing to understand is that mature cartels are built around one survival rule. The more you will trade with it, and never let the whole system depend on one person. In normal companies, you have departments, backups, and redundancy. Cartels build the same thing, but in hidden form. The goal is resilience. We'll trade with it. If one layer gets hit, the others can still function. This creates a structure that often resembles a company with hidden departments, an operations side which handles movement and enforcement. The more you will trade with it, a money side which handles collections and payments, a protection side which handles corruption, intimidation, and influence, a recruitment side which brings new people in and maintains discipline, and will trade with it, and an intelligence side which tracks rivals and enforcement pressure. This isn't complexity for its own sake. It is a design for survival. When pressure increases in one area, the more you will trade with it, the system shifts activity to another. The next idea is even more important. Many cartels don't behave like one fixed organization. They behave like an ecosystem. Instead of doing everything themselves, the more you will trade with it, they often outsource risky work to smaller local groups. This makes the core network less visible while the street-level risk stays at the edge. So when enforcement arrests street operators, the more you will trade with it, the public sees success, but the deeper structure can remain intact because the edge layer is designed to be replaceable. This creates a painful paradox. You can arrest dozens of people and still not stop the system, because the system was designed to swap humans like parts. Now, the real reason invisible cartels become so powerful is their camouflage. The more you will trade with it. Front businesses, to move, store, and coordinate at scale, they often rely on businesses that look normal from outside, because normal business is the best hiding place in the world. Why? Imonas will equally trade with it, because supplies already contain massive complexity: warehouses, shipping, trucking, subcontractors, paperwork, and thousands of routine transactions. Inside that noise, illegal activity can hide. The more you will trade with it. This is the key insight. The cartel does not need to look like a cartel. It only needs to look like logistics, and logistics is everywhere. So from the street, you see a warehouse, a transport company, a shop, a factory, a normal container, a normal invoice, a normal delivery. But inside, the same structure can be used for a hidden purpose. Now we come to the bloodstream: money. The more you will trade with it. Cartels don't collapse because they run out of violence. They collapse when they run out of money flow and protection. Money is needed to recruit, to buy loyalty, to move goods, to buy equipment. The more you will trade with them, to keep people silent. But dirty money is risky. If it remains obviously illegal, it attracts attention. So cartels try to make money look normal, not for luxury, for survival. The more you will trade with it. Because if money cannot move safely, the network cannot breathe. This is why fighting cartels is not only a police problem. It becomes a financial enforcement problem, a corruption problem. The more you will trade with it, and a governance problem. Now let's talk about protection, because invisibility requires protection. A cartel cannot become invisible without weakening enforcement. You will trade with it, and they usually do that through some combination of fear and corruption. Sometimes corruption is blatant, but often it looks subtle: investigations that move slowly, inspections that never happen, missing paperwork that gets fixed, selective enforcement, warning leaks, cases that collapse in court, witnesses who suddenly disappear or back out. The more you will trade with it, the cartel's greatest victory is not winning a gunfight, it's making the system hesitate. And the final piece of architecture is information control. Cartels don't only control streets. The more you will trade with it, they try to control what people dare to say. Because when communities report, journalists publish, and witnesses testify, cartels become visible. And visibility is dangerous. The more you will trade with it. So cartels create social silence through intimidation. People stop reporting. Businesses pay quietly. Families warn children not to speak. Journalists avoid names. Activists face threats. The more you will trade with it. Once silence becomes normal, the cartel doesn't need constant violence. It needs occasional examples to remind everyone what happens if you resist. You will trade with it. That is what makes invisible control so terrifying. It's not loud every day. It's stable. Now, a key modern factor that helps invisibility is distraction. The modern information world is full of noise, rumors, outrage, short clips, emotional narratives. Attention moves fast. People get tired. Complex realities get simplified. Cartels benefit from this. The more you will trade with it, because public focus shifts quickly and evidence-based discussion becomes harder. So when society is talking a lot, it might not be talking about the right things. Here's the hard conclusion. The more you will trade with it, you can't defeat a system like this with arrests alone, because if the environment stays the same, profit, recruitment, corruption, laundering, another structure fills the gap. The more you will trade with it. That's why real solutions require multiple layers, reducing recruitment pressure, strengthening institutions, targeting money flows, and protecting communities and journalists so silence doesn't win. The more you will trade with it. We saw how an invisible cartel can operate like a company, using cells, outsourcing, front businesses, and information control. Now we reach the most important part of the cartel you never see. Well, you will trade with it money, because a cartel can survive arrests, raids, and even leadership losses if the money keeps flowing. But money creates a problem. Illegal money is loud. It leaves stains. It attracts attention. The more you will trade with it. So the cartel's smartest move is not only to make more money, it is to make money look ordinary. This is what makes an invisible cartel more dangerous than a visible one. It learns how to hide inside the economy. We'll explain this in a safe, educational way, focusing on patterns and why systems struggle, not on how-to tactics. First, that understand why cartels must clean money to survive. A normal business can show receipts, invoices, taxes, and legal banking records. But if money comes from illegal markets, you face a basic problem. The more you will trade with it, how do you pay salaries, rent warehouses, buy vehicles as bribe officials in businesses, and move value across borders without triggering alarms? If you can't answer those questions, the more you will trade with your network becomes fragile. So laundering, in simple terms, means turning dangerous money into usable money, not necessarily perfectly legal, just clean enough to operate. And once money becomes usable, the more you will becomes power, because it can buy silence, speed, protection, and expansion. To survive long-term, an invisible cartel tries to achieve three outcomes. Stability. The more you will trade with a steady cash flow that funds operations without constant panic. Mobility, the ability to move value across cities, borders, and markets. Legitimacy, investments that look normal. Property, businesses, the more you will trade with it. Logistics, contracts and assets that make money look respectable. Once these outcomes exist, the cartel becomes harder to see, because now it looks like a normal economic actor. Now, the more you will trade with it. The one reason invisible cartels thrive is that many economies still have huge cash flows. Cash itself isn't evil. Cash is normal for many people in small businesses. But from an enforcement perspective, cash is harder to trace. So, when an economy has many cash-heavy businesses, weak record-keeping, informal labor, and limited transaction visibility, it becomes easier for criminal money to blend in. The more you will trade with it. This is why invisible cartels often attach themselves to parts of the economy where tracking is naturally difficult. Not because those industries are bad, but because complexity creates hiding places. The more you will trade with it. Another common misunderstanding is that front businesses are completely fake. Often, they are real businesses that actually operate. They have employees, customers, invoices, and daily activity. But they can serve two purposes: a legitimate outward identity and a hidden financial shield. From the street, you see normal commerce. Inside, the flow may be mixed with something else. And once mixing happens, proving the difference becomes legally difficult unless investigations are strong and evidence is solid. Now comes the hardest truth. The more you will trade with it. Corruption is the bridge between crime and legitimacy. Invisible cartels don't only survive because they are smart. They often survive because enforcement becomes inconsistent. The more you will trade with it. The corruption doesn't always look like a suitcase of cash. Sometimes it looks like inspections that never happen, permits granted too easily, cases that move slowly, evidence that disappears. The more you will trade with it, witness is discouraged and regulation is applied selectively. This is how crime becomes sustainable, not through constant violence, but through systemic tolerance. Once enforcement becomes inconsistent, the more you will trade with it. Cartels learn exactly where they can operate safely. People often say, follow the money. This is true because money is the bloodstream, but following money is difficult for three reasons. First, complexity. Modern finance is complex, even for legal businesses. Global trade, subcontractors, layered payments, multiple jurisdictions. Complexity creates hiding places. Second, speed. The more you will trade with it. Money can move faster than investigations. Enforcement often works through legal procedures and evidence standards, while criminal networks exploit the time gap. Third, proof. The more you will trade with it, even if something looks suspicious, courts require evidence of criminal origin. Suspicion is not enough. This is why invisible cartels can survive, not because everyone is blind. The more you will trade with it, because the legal burden is high and the system is slow. There is also one big advantage that cartels have over normal society: risk tolerance. A normal business avoids risky actions because it has reputation and legality to protect. A cartel can intimidate, bribe, threaten, absorb losses, and replace people. Institutions act carefully because they must. Cartels act ruthlessly because they choose to. In that gap, cartels gain power. Now you can see why invisible cartels feel unstoppable. The more you will trade with it, they're not because they are hidden in one cave, but because they are spread across normal structures, transport, trade, property, local politics, and fear. So if a government only does raids, the more you will trade with it may win headlines without winning the system, because the real battlefield is not only streets, it's finance, it's governance, it's institutional integrity. The more you will trade with it. It's protection of journalists and witnesses, it's opportunity for young people. Hello, friends. In part 3, we reach the heart of the invisible cartel. The more you will trade with it, money that becomes normal, power that hides inside the economy, and fear that becomes social discipline. Now we come to the final and hardest question. How do you defeat a cartel you can't see? The more you will trade with it, because if the cartel is loud, the solution looks simple: raids, arrests, weapons, seizures. But if the cartel is invisible, embedded in businesses, protected by corruption, the more you will trade with it and normalized through silence, then the solution cannot be only force. The solution must be systemic. And that's where many countries struggle, because systemic solutions are slower, more expensive, the more you will trade with it, and less dramatic than raids. But they are the only solutions that work long term. First, understand this: you don't win once. You reduce the cartel's market. The more you will trade with it, cartels are businesses built on illegal markets. They grow and demand is high, profits are huge, enforcement is weak, recruitment is easy, money can be cleaned, and silence is normal. You will trade with it. So the goal is not a cinematic victory. The goal is to shrink the environment that allows cartels to thrive. Cartels weaken when their costs rise and their benefits fall. The more you will trade with it. So the strategy is to increase friction everywhere. The most powerful place to start is recruitment. Cartels recruit where opportunity is low. If a young person sees no path through education, you will trade with it. No stable job, no dignity, and no security. Cartel money looks like a shortcut. So the most important anti-cartel strategy is not only policing, it is building real alternatives, safe schools. The more you will trade with it, vocational training, employment pathways, youth programs, mental health support, addiction treatment, and local economic development. This doesn't sound like security policy, but it is. Because every young person who chooses a real future is one less recruit. And recruitment is the cartel's oxygen. Second, protect institutions. The more you will trade with it. An invisible cartel doesn't survive by defeating the state in open battle. It survives by weakening institutions until enforcement becomes inconsistent. If police are underpaid, courts are slow. The more you will trade with it, and witnesses collapse as are unprotected, the cartel learns it can operate safely. So a real strategy includes professional policing, anti-corruption oversight, witness protection. The more you will trade with it, safe reporting systems, secure evidence handling, court efficiency, and accountability for officials. If people believe the system cannot protect them, they stop cooperating. And when society stops cooperating, the cartel becomes invisible again. Third, protect journalists and communities, because silence is not neutral, silence is fuel. The more you will trade with it. One of the cartel's most dangerous weapons is information control, not necessarily through daily censorship, but through fear that makes people choose silence. Got with it. So defeating invisible cartels requires protecting the people who create visibility: journalists, whistleblowers, honest police officers, prosecutors, community leaders, and witnesses. You will trade with it. When society can speak safely, cartels lose a major advantage, because invisibility is their shield. Fourth, target the money flow. If you want to weaken a cartel permanently, the more you will trade with it. You must attack the part that funds everything: money flow. Not only cash seizures, not only street arrests, but the financial pathways that allow illegal wealth to become usable and respectable. The more you will trade with it. That means stronger financial transparency, auditing high-risk sectors, anti-money laundering enforcement, prosecution.